There we go. Okay. There we go. All right. Let everybody jump in. Put this here so I can see. Okay, we'll let everybody get in. All right, there we go. Okay, so I was at lunch today with Jerron Wilson. Anyone who is a skater knows who Jerron was. For anyone who doesn't, Jerron is, one, a legendary skateboarder. Two, was incredibly, how would you say it? Made a huge impact in my life. He was one of the first pros I had ever met. He's who got me on DVS when basically S told me that I had no future with them. I called Jerron. I was like, Jerron, is there any way I can get on DVS? He made that happen. He's been a friend of mine for a long time. Anyway, I was at lunch with him, and before he got there, I picked up my phone, and I was watching somebody who tagged me in a video that made a video basically responding to a video I had made. And I don't normally respond to videos. The reason why I'm going to respond to his is because he has a different view than me, but he was like incredibly respectful with how he did it, which I think we're kind of missing in today's, whatever you want to call it, world. But he made a video that was a reaction to a video that I made on investing in California and what the problem is. In my perspective, when it comes to pricing of real estate, right? The affordability aspect of real estate. I think it's by and large a supply-demand issue. I think we're so undersupplied. I think there's multiple factors that have put us into this situation. But when the Fed uses their tools to slow down the economy or bring prices down, they don't work in markets where the supply is that far below the demand. And that was my ultimate point. But I'm going to play his video. I'm hoping you guys can see it. And then I'll put the audio on.
I want to address this video to Mike
Okay.
Taylor. He is a
everybody see that?
educator as well as an investor who is a former professional skateboarder. And by the way, he has some really, really good content. I actually recommend following his channel if you're interested in wealth building. There's one thing, Mikey, that you've been saying that I think is very offbeat. And I think that there's a reason that you should maybe talk about this with a little bit more nuance. And that is that you think that housing prices are the way that they are primarily because of a limited supply.
Sure.
You're half right, but also half wrong, and it's in a really, really, really important context. We are dealing with a limited supply, but it's not because we have a limited availability of homes. In fact, we have a glut of extra homes around America. In the national scale, we're looking at about 16 to 17 million vacant homes. But if you're looking at just California alone, there are more than 1.2 million empty homes in California alone. Enough to completely end all of your homeless issues. Why do we have so many homes, like a ridiculous number of homes, to the point where we could end homelessness 25 times over and still have extra homes? But no one can buy them? Don't take this the wrong way, but you're kind of part of the problem. You run a company called Commune Capital that has about $250 million in assets, according to the last...
Actually, I'll pause it there. You can pause, right?
$250 million in assets, according to the last few videos.
So, I guess we'll go through this. And really, the reason why I'm doing this is I love that even in his comments, he's like, look, you do some great content. And he did it in a very respectful way. One, the thing about real estate that's very important to know is that real estate is fragmented. So, when you use national numbers, it's very difficult to do so because there's certain markets that may be undersupplied. There's other markets that are not. The opposite's happening. And that's even on the state level, right? Like if you're talking about California, you can say that maybe somewhere like Bakersfield, they don't need any more units. There's actually an abundance, or maybe there's too much supply, and that's why prices have come down. But then there's markets like in mine, Ventura County, that's not the case, where 31,000 units below where we need to be. So real estate is very fragmented, right? It's important to note that. Two, the other thing, when it comes to creating content, especially short form content, you only have a minute. So of course you're going to leave some of the nuance out. So I do agree with you on that one. Like this is more nuanced than that. But on the first point, I don't think your statement there is accurate because real estate is so fragmented and it really comes down to county and city, not state or nation or national numbers. The thing about homelessness, and when you made the reference on we have so many available units that this will solve homelessness. In my perspective, there's a flaw in that viewpoint. And if you notice when a lot of politicians, especially when they talk about homelessness, they're always talking about real estate pricing with it. You'll never hear them talk about homelessness without it. And so it makes us feel like the natural solution is to build more housing and that solves the homelessness problem. The problem is, and we've seen this now in San Francisco, we've seen it in Los Angeles and San Diego, housing is not going to solve homelessness because the majority of people on the streets are not only struggling from not having a house, they're struggling from mental illness and addiction. And that's a big reason why you've seen San Francisco build so much real estate and put so much money into permanent housing for homelessness. And you're seeing a huge percentage of vacancy there because homelessness, and I understand that this is a complex issue as well. For the three categories, right? You have those that are struggling on hard times. That is a part of it. It's about 20%. You have those who are struggling with addiction. You have those that are struggling with mental illness. Those are the two largest, and there's a lot of crossover. For the ones struggling with mental illness, part of mental illness is an inability to see that something's wrong, right? They can't see that they have a mental illness the way that maybe you and I would see that we have, I don't know, name some illness. Maybe we have blanking on what example I should use. Maybe one of us had a heart attack, right? It would be really easy for us to know, oh my gosh, there's something happening. I need to go get help. That's not how it is with mental illness. The bigger challenge is, and this is the thing I think needs to be changed for us to actually make movement on solving this. Mental illness doesn't come into effect until the human brain stops developing. That's typically going to be 18 to 27 years old. So adults struggle with mental illness, and it is impossible for you to get somebody or force help for somebody struggling with mental illness because of them being an adult. So what happens is you have people who have an inability to see that something's wrong and their loved ones can't force them to get help. So you have a massive portion of homelessness. Addiction is another one. To me, you have to address the addiction first and help people build their life back to purpose, and then open something up like subsidized housing or transitional housing. But a lot of the housing they build in San Francisco is basically available housing, and people who are addicted actually can use drugs and get drugs anywhere they want and still live there. It doesn't solve the problem at hand. And then I would say the third thing where I cut him off, he talks about how my company is a part of the problem. And we'll go into it after, but he basically says, or he uses stats of the percentage of institutional investors that are buying condos and townhomes and single family residents, which is totally accurate. Like that is happening. The thing about my company and where I would challenge him on, we don't buy homes. We don't buy condos. We don't buy townhomes. We build apartment buildings. We build storage units as well. But for the context of this conversation, we build apartment buildings. Renting apartments are a process of the natural cycle of us growing up, right? When we leave our parents' homes, not all of us just have the opportunity to just buy a house, right? Usually we're gonna rent an apartment. I would say those that follow the the path to home ownership, I guess would be this example. You're going to rent and you're going to go to school and then you're going to get a job. And as you start making more money and you start saving, then you may have the opportunity to buy a house, right? But apartments are very necessary in this conversation. When it comes to institutional investors owning homes, I'm actually totally on your side with that one. That is a big reason why, to my original point, the supply is low and why pricing is high. That's because there's a big portion of single family that is not able to be bought. That's not just institutional investors, that's people investing in Airbnbs as well. That's taking properties that would be a rental or be a potential purchase and taking it off the market. So I do agree with you there. Let's go for the next parts.
About 9,000 units. Now, most of these, of course, are going to be storage units, but a huge chunk of that is going to be apartment complexes. It's going to be homes. It's going to be duplexes. It's going to be condos. It's going to be stuff that people would live in, right? And so you guys, a small group of people, own a ridiculous number of units for housing. And this has been a growing trend over the last couple decades. Corporate ownership has absolutely skyrocketed to kind of a ridiculous extent. We are looking at more than 30% of all homes bought, period, every single year going to institutional investors. And here's what they do with them. In order to buy a home, normally you have to go through an app. You have to go through redfin.com or Zillow or realestate.com. Like, there's a whole range of different websites that do this, but there's a few big ones. Like, there's a few primary apps that you have to go through if you're going to try to find most of the good options in any given area. And most of these apps will price based on surrounding homes in a region, right? So if you have a 2,000 square foot home, it's going to look at other 2,000 square foot homes in a limited, like 1 to 3 mile radius, and it's going to price according to what homes have sold for in like the recent time period. And that sounds like it would be a reasonable approach to things, right? Like, that would be just like how you could price a market that is a free-flowing market. But there's a challenge. Institutional investors will come into a region and buy almost all of the available homes, at least all of the available homes in like a given like price category. And what they'll do is, let's say that we're talking about 10 homes, right? They come in, they buy 10 homes on that market. They will take one of those homes or two of those homes, and they will sell it to themselves through a shell company for a vastly higher price than the original purchasing price that they got it for. And so in these apps, on Zillow, on Redfin, etc., they will now suddenly have a spike in the available pricing of those given homes. And who owns the next 8 of the homes that are being sold? None other than those institutional investors. And this is happening at scale in like very large regions. In fact, in some counties across Texas, we have more than 50% of homes being owned by corporate owners, that's insane. Half of all homes? That's like wild. But why does this matter? You've mentioned in a few videos recently that it only takes a few renters to be able to cover all of your costs. So if you buy a lot of different homes, you only need a few of those to be rented out, to be not vacant, in order to be able to cover all of your basic costs. And everything else above that is it's profit. It's all profit. So we end up with this situation, right, where most of the limit in supply is because there are companies coming in and buying so many homes at once that when they want to be able to cover their baseline, they don't have to sell all of them in order to be able to cover their baseline. They just have to make sure that the overall asset value is appreciating and that they have some sort of a reasonable supply of income coming off of the rentals that they have acquired, right? So they will buy up all of these homes and then sometimes we'll just let them sit unless they're getting the right price for it.
Okay. So I'll cover kind of a couple things. One, again, I think he may have thought that we buy single family or basically a product that you can purchase. We don't. So I tend to agree with some of the stuff he said, not all of it though. It doesn't take and maybe something I said wasn't clear, there was a misunderstanding. It doesn't take a small percentage of vacancy or a small percentage of occupancy to cover your expenses and your debt service. It needs to be further up. So you can't just buy 10 homes, have 2 in there, and all of a sudden that's covering, your expenses for all 10. It needs to be much higher. The part about investors coming in to buy 8 homes and then selling 2 to artificially drive the comp up for others, I'd like to see the data on where he's pulling that. I haven't seen that. I'm not saying it's not happening. I'm saying I've never seen data to support that. And then the last part he said was, what did he say? Shoot, now I'm blanking on the last part he said. Well, all that to say, there's a part of it that is right. Like there's a problem with availability. There's a problem with supply. That in my perspective, even what he's talking about, institutional investors coming in, the rise of Airbnb, interest rates being over 2 times what they were a year and a half ago, which people aren't selling who maybe would. All of that is affecting supply. There's not enough product online. So in my perspective, what it's going to take to actually fix it is to build. You got to build more. But remember how I started this thing. The market is fragmented. In some markets, you need to build more. In others, it's fully correcting. You're seeing big corrections. So that's my point of view. I think he was, what I really appreciated about him, though, a very respectful way of having a different view. So I like that. Now I'm like blanking on what he said on the end, though. I thought he was
tens or even hundreds of thousands of homes.
The part about big institutional investors coming in and having a ton of units sitting vacant, so it drives rents up, artificially keeping supply down. I'd like to see. I want to see the data on a big fund doing that strategically for a certain reason. I mean, look, I'm not an institutional investor. We're a boutique shop. For us, we want to lease these things up as fast as possible. We want to be at the highest percent occupancy as possible. So, you got to just remember that if you're sitting vacant, you're losing money. And if you're losing money, you have to consider the percentage that you're losing versus what you're trying to attempt to drive in rent prices. And, the latter has to be larger than the former. I find that hard to believe that's happening. So I don't know. What I'm going to do, I'm going to do some research to find out where there's data supporting, institutional investors coming in and buying up multiple properties to sell a couple of them to themselves to drive the price up to then get a higher value on the others. I honestly am going to be blown away if that's a reality. I don't think it is, but I'm going to look into that. I don't know. What are your guys' thoughts before I close this out? I still think it comes back to supply. I think, that's not info BlackRock wants out there. Look, I hear you on BlackRock. I'm not a big fan. I think what they're doing in the market, I don't like. I think by and large, single family residents should, I want individuals to be able to buy them. It's like you're talking about an asset. And look, the crazy part is you guys have heard me talk about this forever. Like, I don't think owning a home is the best investment. Like, I always advocate towards owning an investment property before a primary. But I also know that owning a home is like one of the biggest factors that keep people out of poverty. It's a forced savings account and forces you to prepare for retirement. And so, yeah, I don't like the big institutions coming in buying them up. I really don't. So I hear you on that one. This time around, even if prices drop, there is no demand mentally. People won't buy no matter the prices. We are stagnant, and that is worse. That's not what I'm seeing. That Alejandro, that might be potentially in the market that you're at. The market that I'm in, it's multiple offers on everything, and prices are still going up, not down. There's just no product to buy. I got in this situation when we were going through our mold issue with the house. There was nothing available. I knew the problem was bad. I didn't know it was this bad. So I think in some markets, you may be right. I think in others, until, either interest rates go even higher, what would other be? No, actually, you know what? I think there is an argument that if interest rates come down, you may see more product hit the line, and it might not do what interest rates normally do with prices. But if you look at the savings, the percentage or the amount of dollars we all have saved nationally, that number's gone down significantly over the last 2 years. As our savings accounts dry up, as unemployment goes up, or as we really start feeling the impact of a recession, that could come into effect where you start seeing prices really come down. But the question is, will it come down enough to offset the supply deficiency? That's really what we're up against. Thank you for the response. I appreciate your thoughts. Darren, legend. You know what? Let me make sure. Darren, heck yeah. You know what? I should have tagged you in it. I wanted to make a video, but I was like, your video, it was longer and had so many points that it would have been hard to do on a normal video. But what I will say, I very, very, very much appreciate how you went about that. You having not only a difference of opinion, but even the challenge on my company and the impact that makes, you did that in a very respectful way. So I appreciate that greatly. It really, really well done, especially in a time like this, right? We're in a time where when you have a difference of opinion than someone else, you come off too hot. You don't even give the person the benefit of the doubt, or do it in either a thought-provoking way or a way that really adds to the conversation that I think challenges the way, whether it's you or me, think, to ultimately give ourselves, a stronger idea of what's what. So I really, really appreciate how you went about that. All right. That's going on here in West LA. Almost all single family houses are being bought and torn down to make condos and just hiked up prices. Yeah. You know what another one is too? What we're seeing a lot of foreign dollars come in. In my area, I was talking to a couple realtors the other day. There's money coming in from China. There's money coming in from Russia. There's people or companies investing in United States real estate. So it's single family specifically. So that has an effect as well. Live looks sick, dude. Thank you, legend. I appreciate it. All right, I've got to shoot out. I've got my wife's doing a thing tonight, a little women's group thing, hang. So I have the kids. Have a phenomenal night, everyone. Darren, I appreciate you again. I'm going to be around tomorrow. Let's do another live. Hope you guys are well. Talk soon.